because Jesus willingly stood alone in Gethsemane and ultimately the cross, we have eternal assurance that we will never be abandoned by God. His loneliness secures our everlasting fellowship. The beauty and the power of the Last Supper lies in this truth. Jesus willingly stood alone, fully aware of the coming betrayal, abandonment, and suffering, and yet he committed to fulfilling his mission of love and redemption. He did this intentionally. He did this willingly to secure an eternal covenant relationship with us, with our Father. He faced the ultimate abandonment so that you and I can confidently know that we will never face God's justice alone. The bread and the cup are going to remind us powerfully today when we actually partake of the depth of his love and the permanence of his promise to never abandon us, never leave us behind, never leave us in the pit like Joseph. After this meal, darkness deepens on Jesus' face because his greatest trial is coming. We see this in verses 27 to 52. Let me read that now. And Jesus said to them, "You will fall away, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even though they all fall away, I will not." And Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said emphatically, "If I must die with you, I will not deny you." And they all said the same. And they went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch." And going a little farther, he fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. And he came the 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? It is enough. The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." And immediately while he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with him a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Seize him and lead him away under guard." And when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi!" And he kissed him. And they laid hands on him and seized him. But one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Jesus said to them, "Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled." And they all left him and fled. In Gethsemane, Jesus enters his deepest sorrow, his deepest moment, his deepest agony. He tells Peter, James, and John, he says this, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." And this is poetic and beautiful, but it's actually just this expression of emotion and anguish. Jesus is facing something even more terrifying than physical pain. He is confronting this imminent reality of bearing all of humanity's sin and absorbing God's righteous wrath against us. Imagine the weight pressing upon him. The sin of each single person in this room and every generation before and every generation to come is being poured into this cup. In his solitude, he prays earnestly, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours to be done." This cup symbolizes God's holy and just judgment upon sin. It's a metaphor that's deeply rooted in the Old Testament, and it's depicting divine wrath. And Jesus in this moment is fully aware of its gravity, and his willingness to drink this cup reveals an obedience and love that is unmatched in all of human history. Yet in this moment, in his moment of greatest need, his closest companions, those who vowed loyalty even unto death, repeatedly fail him. Instead of remaining alert in prayerful support, they succumb to physical fatigue. They fall asleep multiple times. Their weakness isn't merely like this physical exhaustion, but it's kind of a symbol of human frailty and how we'll keep doing that sort of thing over and over again. We have this tendency to falter precisely when vigilance is most crucial. Now, vigilance, maybe that word will remind you of the sermon from last week a little bit, where the sermon ended with, stay awake. Jesus was predicting the future to come and all that was going to occur. And his big charge to his disciples at that moment was, you never know when you need to be most vigilant, so stay awake. And now here we are just a couple verses later, and they can't even stay awake when they can see Jesus right next to them praying. And then Judas arrives. He leads this mob armed with swords and clubs, and now we just have chaos. Judas, one of the inner circle, betrays Jesus with irony. A kiss. He betrays him with a kiss. A greeting of friendship and respect and admiration is now a sign of treachery. Jesus calmly confronts Judas, asking pointedly, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? This betrayal isn't political, it's personal. It exposes the vulnerability and humanity of Jesus in his final moments. The disciples are reacting impulsively, right? We're told that one of them draws a sword in a panic. He injures a priest, but Jesus immediately kind of rebukes the violence and demonstrates that he is committed to God's redemptive plan, even though just a few moments ago he said, I'd rather not do that, but if you want me to, I will. He made the choice to fulfill scriptures and submit to this unfolding plan of salvation rather than defend himself through human means, or divine means even. Amidst this turmoil, the disciples are overwhelmed with fear, and they abandon Jesus entirely. They scatter into the darkness, just as Jesus has predicted from Zechariah. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter. Mark emphasizes this abandonment, showing that Jesus is completely alone. He's forsaken by friends who had walked closely with him for years. And even a young man following Jesus, possibly Mark himself, flees naked into the night, underscoring this desperation and panic that was ensued in this moment. Consider the isolation that Jesus must have felt in that moment. He said, friends, pray with me and sit with me and wait. Be alert. And they slept. He prayed to our Father in heaven and said, please, if you would, please take this away from me. And ultimately did the right thing in the sense of, but if it be your will, of course I will follow. He's arrested, he's bound, he's betrayed, he's deserted. He stands alone. No comfort or companionship, not because he lacked friends, but because this was precisely God's plan from the very beginning. Jesus willingly stepped into loneliness, fully aware of what was ahead to come, because he knew that this solitary path to the cross was necessary to redeem humanity from eternal separation from God. This was the way. I'm a nerd. I like Marvel movies. If you've watched the Avengers movies and you see Doctor Strange just kind of sitting there, I've calculated all 1,350,000 possibilities, but there's one way in which we get this thing done. And this was that moment for Jesus. The scene hurts. And I don't know the answer to this for myself. I think I do. But the question has to be, are we ready to stand in times of difficulty with Jesus? Or will we also scatter when our faith is challenged? More profoundly, though, it reassures us that because Jesus willingly stood alone in Gethsemane and ultimately the cross, we have eternal assurance that we will never be abandoned by God. His loneliness secures our everlasting fellowship and transforms our fears into what I hope is an unwavering hope and faith for us today. See, friends, Mark 14 calls us to face the profound reality that Christ willingly endured loneliness and betrayal and abandonment for one clear reason. He stood alone in suffering so that we would never stand alone before the judgment of God. If you've ever faced some form of deep loneliness, perhaps in dark moments when you feel unseen or unheard, or in isolation of being let down by someone that you've trusted, you know how consuming and overwhelming that pain can be. And yet this story that we've journeyed through today reminds us of something comforting, hopefully, that Jesus, in his infinite love, intentionally embraced an isolation far greater than anything that we have ever experienced. He endured betrayal by his closest companions, abandonment by his beloved followers, and ultimately, and this is when Jesus is weeping in tears in the Garden of Gethsemane, the weight of sin is 100% in mind during this prayer. But the even greater thing in his prayer in that moment, the harder thing, ultimately, is separation from his Father as he bore that sin. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, actively said, I will leave my relationship with my Father for us. We should be responding like the woman at Bethany. Because Jesus willingly walked the path of suffering alone so that we could know eternal companionship and acceptance with God. Every painful step towards the cross was on purpose. Every moment of agony, every thorn on the crown that he's going to wear, every whipping and lashing that he received, every piercing in his body was intentional. In his isolation, Christ secured our adoption into God's family, offering us a love and acceptance that will never fade, will never diminish, and he will never abandon us in it. Through this moment, these beginning moments of walking to the cross, this is where our promise lies. This is where our adoption begins, where we become co-heirs with Jesus Christ in the kingdom of God, because Jesus himself was willing to suffer. We should be overflowing with gratitude and devotion, unwavering, unquestioning. So brothers and sisters of the Grove Church, let's not hold back, afraid of extravagance in worship or sacrifice in our service. Let them say we're showy. Let them say that you're doing too much. Let the relatives of yours saying, are you that devoted to the church? You seem a little too devoted. Let that be true of us. Let that be true of the way we follow Jesus. In the 90s, what was it? Jesus freaks? Right? Let them call us that again. Let us be known undeniably for who we follow by the way we live our lives and the level of devotion we have. Let us pour out our lives in an unmistakable way that declares that Jesus Christ is the highest treasure that we have here and forever. And let this truth comfort and strengthen us in our moments of loneliness. When we feel forsaken, remember Christ's words, I will never leave nor forsake you. He is with us.